Okay, we're doing another one with Max, where
Hello.
we're answering the questions from the last one. All of the questions are non-lifting, or like non-technical and non-lifting related for some reason.
Okay.
So on this one, please leave more technical lifting related comments or questions so that we can give actually useful answers potentially. That being said, let's do it.
Alright, how much do thin wrists or dainty wrists affect bench press, and can people with small wrists still bench decent weight?
It depends on what you think is decent weight. My wrists are really, really, really tiny, and I bench 520 right now. So I don't think it really matters as long as you're setting the weight low in your palm and you're gripping it well. I don't think the size of your wrist should have any bearing on your bench. You know, if your wrists are hurting when you're benching, you're probably setting the bar poorly in your palm. So you're setting it high. You know, it's not directly over your wrist. It's not directly over your elbow. So you're having a poor transfer of force, and it's also hurting your wrist. So fixing that would probably be a two birds, one stone type of thing.
Yeah, my wrists are thicker than Sam's, and I bench significantly less. Sam, what's the meaning between your tattoos? How many do you have? Plus, do you plan on getting any more?
I am a basic bitch, but like the bro version, so they're mostly just like Norse mythology, which I think is cool. I have 5 right now, I think. I plan on getting more, probably.
Max, do you have any tattoos or want any? I currently don't have any. I don't have a ton of plans on getting them anytime soon, but I'm not opposed to it. I just don't have anything to get tattooed. Oh god, he's got the stash and he's a lax player. I swear I'm not a lax bro. Sam, barely could hear anything, lol. Garbage volume, what the hell happened, buddy?
What are you? What are your thoughts?
I didn't have any problems with the audio. No one else did.
Yeah.
On you!
So that might be like an interface thing. So if you go and you click the little dots button right into the settings, you press the audio settings, and then you go fuck yourself. It tends to fix that problem. So yeah, best of luck.
Questions for both of you. Do you remember your numbers on the big 3 when you first started lifting?
So if you mean like the first time I like did them, I think I benched like 1 plate for a couple. I think I squatted 185 for a triple maybe. And I want to say I deadlifted either 225 or like 275, if I recall correctly.
I squatted 165, I failed a 100-pound bench press, and Sam stopped me going over 205 because he thought I was going to hurt my back, and he didn't want our parents to yell at him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that did happen.
Does CBD actually help with recovery?
The science seems to not support that, no. But anecdotally, a lot of people say that it might help with your sleep. And if you're sleeping better, whether it's due to a placebo or actual physiological reason, that's probably good. That being said, I think that you could improve your sleep a lot less expensively, you know, by just having good sleep hygiene. So it's not really on my list of things that your money should be going towards if you're at all on a budget.
I've never tried, so I can't really speak to it. What causes the uneven lockout you have at times on the bench?
That's a good question. Everyone, like, if I had $1 for every time someone told me to, make sure you hit some dumbbell bench afterward. I've hit dumbbell bench 2 to 3 days a week for 6 years. That's not the problem. I have no discernible like muscular asymmetry strength-wise. Like if I do a unilateral tricep motion, there's no difference between the sides. If I do a unilaterally loaded chest motion, there's no difference between the sides. More so than anything else, if I were to give my best guess, I believe it's a motor patterning error on a real like max effort bench. I tend to revert to just an old bad habit. You know, maybe there was some sort of asymmetry in my pressing muscles down the line, and I established that. Maybe it was just something I ingrained from doing too many shitty reps. But more so than anything, I think I could finish those reps symmetrically, and I do sometimes consciously correct it, which would suggest it's not a strength thing as much as a patterning thing. So that'd be my guess. And then like at the end of a set, I don't have my wits about me, so I'll almost just forget to consciously correct it. It's the biggest issue.
BCAAs effective or just waste of money? How about EAAs?
Okay, so if you were going to pick between the two, EAAs are definitely superior because you're getting the full spectrum, whereas basically the branched chain amino acids, you're only getting a portion of the ones that your body can't naturally produce itself. That's what EAAs are, is the full spectrum of aminos that your body is unable to produce for itself. So if you're to pick between the two, I would definitely pick EAAs. And I would say that if you're eating sufficient protein, the evidence to support either of them is fairly limited. That being said, there's some very smart guys that I respect that say an intra-workout EAA can definitely help with recovery anecdotally. John Meadows is a big proponent of just like dextrose and EAAs as an intra-workout drink to aid in recovery. And he's a really, really smart guy, so who am I to say is wrong? But the research it's not a night and day difference, and the research doesn't really show much difference at all.
Thoughts on Thompson fat pad?
It's a really good way to inflate your bench, and I do it often. That being said, if you have any competitive aspirations, I would stay away from it because you don't get it in comp, so you don't want to train to a standard that's easier than what you're going to do in competition. What do you think? Max has used one.
Yeah, so the only one I've used is like lower to the ground, so it actually negatively affects me because I benefit from being on a comp bench or higher bench. But also the width certainly makes up for a lack of back tightness, which I suffer from, so I get like notable weight out of a fat pad. So I think it's sick, but also don't do it if you're anywhere near a meet, or don't claim that those are close to meet numbers or meet ready numbers, because they're not. Do you count Thor's 501?
Yes. What do you think?
I think it's the heaviest deadlift anyone's picked out, and that's what matters to me.
Well, and also I think that people are retroactively really romanticizing the circumstances of Eddie's deadlift. Eddie flew out, or he didn't flow it out. They held the competition in his hometown and let him use his own deadlift bar. So if we're saying that like Thor is under much easier conditions, Eddie got to wait as long as he needed between attempts. He got to use his own bar in his own town. That doesn't sound too unlike Thor, right? He got to pick his time between attempts. He got to use his own bar. And like it's not like he did just a true gym lift where, okay, well, I'm going to hit this at some point, so whatever day I feel best, I'm going to do it. That's one of the biggest advantages you can have, and that's one of the things that makes competition a lot more difficult than training lifts, is you have a fixed date that you don't get to control. Thor had a fixed date for this. Just because people weren't going in between, I don't think necessarily invalidates the record completely. Plenty of records are done under favorable conditions. And the whole point of strongman is that it's got less rules and regulations. Like if you can hitch it, you can do whatever. So I think it's a bit of a farce. Had Luke Stoltman broken the log record with Big Z judging it, I would say it would count, and I think the majority of people would have said it counted. But because Eddie raised a fit about it. Okay, phone ran out of storage, but I'll splice the clips together using my iPhone editing skills. My point was just that people are suddenly creating rules within strongman that weren't there off of Eddie's word largely. Laws has a really good video on the history of the deadlift record if you would like to see it, because it is so historically unregulated that I would say it counts. If we were counting like weird implement deadlifts towards the world record in the past, then I think certainly we can count a lift done under favorable conditions as well. Next question.
Should I bloat max or cut?
Bloat max.
Bloat max. And then
Bloat max.
that's actually my new Instagram handle. Thoughts on a stomach growing alongside of getting bigger muscles and how to shrink waist while getting bigger arms, chest.
Well, is that Natty Lifter?
That is Natural Lifter.
My guy.
Moving on. What do you do after an unsuccessful block?
You answer first.
Um,
You haven't talked very much this time.
I think you need to go through and just see like what you did differently from previous blocks who were successful, and look at like your in and outside of gym behavior, or like you just have to be honest with yourself and like where did you start slacking or where could you improve. Where like recently I've had like 2 not super optimal blocks, and it's because like my nutrition was a lot worse. I haven't been eating as much as I should. My sleep might have been off, or I might have taken out something that has previously helped my programming a bit. So address both in and outside of the gym factors. Don't get in your head about it. Make like a change, or it won't go well again. But I think go into it with like a solid change. Usually eating more, sleeping more, get better habits, work harder in the gym. I like don't think if you like really dialed in everything, you're going to have another bad block.
Yeah, and don't change everything though. If you had a good block and then you had a bad block, your whole program isn't bad. Probably shouldn't start out and rewrite the whole thing. You're kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater there. So if I'm coaching someone or for myself, they have a block and they don't get stronger, right? Well, first thing I would look at is, did you actually fail to get stronger, or did you fail to display your improvements in a meaningful 1RM? So if you crushed rep PRs all the way up and then choked your max week, I probably would just have you run the same block again and not choke. So that would be the first thing, is like, okay, did we get stronger and just fail to express it? Or am I just like, can I not convince myself that I am stronger than I was last block? And if I didn't get stronger than I was last block, there's usually 2 directions I could go with that, right? The first one would be, all right, I'm doing a sufficient quantity of work in the gym to drive adaptation, and I'm not doing the things to facilitate that adaptation outside the gym. So my diet is poor, from a performance perspective. My sleep is poor. My stress management might be poor. So you could be running a good block, but if you're in the middle of a very difficult semester of school, for example, you might see dampened adaptation. You might see less growth than you would otherwise, and that's not a programming error. Or let's say you're doing a reasonable enough job with those outside the gym things where you should be facilitating adaptation. You're not seeing any. You might not be applying enough stimulus. You might be applying too much, but you're probably not. You might not be doing enough difficult work sets on the motion across the week to see growth, right? So it's like, okay, I handle, let's say 10 difficult work sets on the bench, and I'm not seeing adaptation. Maybe that isn't enough to drive progress, right? So if I'm nailing my outside the gym stuff, I could start ramping that up and see what is the upper limits of what I can sustainably recover from as far as that workload. And then the last thing would be, okay, maybe I'm doing sufficient workload, right? And I'm doing all the things I should be outside the gym, and I'm still not seeing progress. Well, if your form is shit, that's not surprising, right? So that's the time when you don't change anything really. You just fix your form. If necessary, you dial back the weights to fix your form, and that'll pay big dividends. But sometimes you just get locked into a style of performing the lift that might have gotten you to where you are, but just because something got you to where you are doesn't mean it's what you should be doing to get you to where you want to be. So I'll see some guys, right, they start out conventional, they're skinny, they have no muscle mass, right, and conventional is tough, and they are like, oh man, I want to pull 4 plates. All the other skinny guys are pulling sumo, so they switch to sumo, and they see another spurt of progress, right? So let's say they get to like 500. But if they're sumo, they're not really taking advantage of the benefits of sumo, and they're still just kind of doing a wide stance conventional to some degree. They're not really utilizing their quads and their hips. More often than not, those people will either you really dial in the sumo, but if it's something you just can't get to click as a pretty looking sumo, usually you're going to be better off switching to conventional. You'll probably pass your sumo PR within 1 to 2 blocks because you're going to be doing a posterior chain dominant lift either way, and you're just in a better position to fight the weight conventional. So that would be, I guess, the third category if you had an unsuccessful block, is to take a harsh look at, is this form sustainably going to get stronger, or was it just something I did to get stronger at one point?
All right, if you guys have any training related questions or how to be more charismatic or mustache tips for me, feel free to drop them in the comments below.